Friends, Pat McGrath Labs Mothership 12 Petalmorphosis has finally arrived, and if it's your first time here, hi, I'm Alicia. I reviewed quite a many Pat McGrath Labs Mothership palettes. You could find plenty on my playlist that I'm happy to link down below, and this was highly anticipated because usually Pat McGrath Labs releases a Mothership palette yearly. First releasing back in 2017 when she had the trio Mothership 1 through 3, and thereon after we saw a Mothership every year. Always highly anticipated, figuring out what Mother was going to do next, but unfortunately last year revealed a few shortcomings for the brand, cheaper packaging, smaller pan sizes, and no Mothership. But when Petalmorphosis was announced, we were waiting, or I was waiting with bated breath to discover if it will house the beloved Blitz baked Italian formula that was included all the way from her first Motherships through, I would say, Utopian Dream Mothership 9. Unfortunately, there are no baked shades in Petalmorphosis. I haven't touched this yet. I'll get to the swatches and of course the looks, and all other remarks concerning the formula change, or maybe there's a new formula replacing the Blitz one. Those will be towards the end of the video. If you want to find out what my thoughts are now, you could just click on that timestamp down below or scrub the timeline here to head over to that section. But here's a palette. I'm actually quite impressed by the fact they release a limited edition compact that is exclusively available on patmcgrathLabs.com. Both the lilac and the black compacts are available on this site. You will not find this limited edition release on other retailers, and I was actually interested to see how this will be different from Pat McGrath's collaboration with Bergdorf Goodman. This palette houses Bronze Seduction, and you can see that the Bergdorf palette is the iconic lavender color for the store, and Petalmorphosis is like a gradient, like an orchid to a lavender. I think it's lovely. You can kind of detect that on the photos, and you probably saw in the footage I had to take this palette outside so I could capture that gradient on camera. It was hard to do so indoors, but if I tilt it here, you could see the darker hue start on this portion of the palette and then it gets lighter. I think it's lovely. As soon as I found out Petalmorphosis was releasing in this color palette, I was like, sign me up. But yes, what am I talking about with these Blitz shades? Well, let me show you again a close-up of Bronze Seduction, one of which house the baked shades. You can see that this side of the palette has the metallic shades as well as the mattes, right? And just from how the pans look, these are a pressed formula, as opposed to this side of the palette, which is usually reserved for the special dazzle shades from Pat McGrath Labs. You can see how this is a baked Italian formula. It is not pressed. You have the Blitz finish, which is more like a burnished metallic, very lightweight and shiny. Astral, which is more like a reflective, dazzling shade, and a couple of others that are on the flakier side. Depending on the palette, some are better than others. But I just wanted to head into a quick few retail details. This palette retails for $128, $3 more than the originally priced $125. I can't recall when the price went up, whether it was for moonlit or for sunlit, but people's concerns were the fact that this is a more expensive palette and not the same formula. I don't know what it is. I could only speculate, and a few theories are that the lab that was formulating the Baked Shadow formula shut down. Maybe Pat McGrath Labs couldn't afford to work with them anymore, but I highly doubt it, considering that she is now the creative director for Louis Vuitton Beauty. That's what I'm calling it. I'm not sure if that's the official name. That is slated to release this autumn. Who knows what the issue is, right? Maybe, yeah, the lab shut down and they had to come up with another baked formula or another formula altogether. But then you ask, well, you see other baked types of shadows on the market. So again, let's get to the swatches, shall we? But here's another close-up of the inside. Just off the gate, it's a lovely color story, and actually it appears more pastel leaning than what I originally just envisioned when I first saw the photos and the swatches. And the Pat McGrath Lab Instagram feed can be a little intense in terms of the lighting choices that they make, truly capturing the depth of the shade and also the twinkle factor that could kind of skew the color as well, how it's represented on your screen. In person, it kind of is giving like intermediate pastel, almost as if she wanted to expand on Fleur Fantasia, maybe. Although I would consider Fleur Fantasia to be much more pastel, right? Lightweight in terms of the color choices there. But looking at this, definitely I think spring appropriate. Looking at this in person. But let's get to it. Okay, I'm excited to see what we have at our disposal. And with that said, we'll start with Divine Dawn, which feels like her typically formulated metallic formula. Creamy, smooth on the application, and you can see there that it has a little bit of like a pastel pink lean. Maybe I should pull up. Oh, never mind. It says here a warm golden beige luminizer. I didn't pick up warm golden beige, but sure. Nocturnal Bloom. Excited to see that Pat McGrath, or again, don't know how involved. I know obviously she was involved in this release, but to what degree based off what she might have been involved in, like let's say Divine Rose 2 as an example, is a rich hunter green matte. Oh, that's lovely. Happy to see a different type of extreme color that she likes to include in her palettes. First three housing the black, extreme black, Bronze Seduction having the two browns, or the three in all, but like the two darker browns. And then we get into the mauve and the plums when we go into the Divine Rose era. You see what I mean? Twilight Lilac, a soft lilac dark plum. Ooh, that actually swatches a little more, as it says here, lilac, but almost like an orchid lilac. That's a lovely shade. Also could be nice on the cheeks. First razzly dazzly shade, Astral Iridescent Iris. An iridescent lavender astral. Oh, that's pretty. That's pretty. And looking at the pan, this is not a typically formulated metallic. This has a lot more pearl, has beautiful shine. And you can just see from the pan how it's different from what we saw from Divine Dawn. Okay. Can't say that exists. Does that exist in her Quints? I gotta double check. Stand by for that assessment. Cosmic Fantasies, a burgundy metallic. Oh, that's beautiful. All over the lid, smooth on the application. Very much likens to the Divine shade here in terms of texture. Oh, that's pretty. I like it. What does this shade remind me of? Ooh, it's gonna bother me. It's not from Pat McGrath. I feel it might be from Natasha Denona somewhere. This is new. The pearl in the matte. Lunar Nectar Coral Rose Matte with gold pearl. That will look lovely on the cheeks as well. Hard to detect the gold pearl. You can see it better in the actual shade when looking at it in the pan. But that's pretty. Again, blush. Astral Eden Envy, a chartreuse astral with gold pearls. Oh my. Is this like Gigabyte 2.0? Gigabyte is a baked shade. This is not baked. This is more of a I don't even know how you would classify this. It's not quite like the metallic. You can see that this has more shine. The metallic is a little more burnished and finished, but I'm excited to see how that would perform on the lid. If I seem a little down in energy, family, I flew in from Seattle this morning on a red eye. And I did not sleep because I can't sleep on planes. Blitz Radiant Rasphity, a metallic turquoise with blue and green pearls. Oh my, that's lovely. I like that. You know what I admire about this formula? Although they're calling it Blitz, not the Blitz that we were conditioned to get used to recognize. I do like how there's not a lot of flakiness. The swatch is consistent where there's not a lot of fallout. The pigments are uniform in that way and cohesive. So that leaves me with the impression that the application will be quite effortless and smooth, just based off the swatches alone. Astral Sunset Splendor is a soft iridescent coral astral. Oh, that's lovely. Inner corner, just more of a lightweight moment, maybe across the lid. And lastly, we have Blitz Bronze Supernova. It is a platinum bronze with silver pearl. Oh my heavens. So here we have all the swatches from Petalmorphosis. I can say great improvement from Sunlit Seduction, which housed an, I think, an atrocious melted metallic shade that was tough to pick up, tough to apply on the lid. I mean, nearly impossible. You had to use your finger. These, I have the impression, again, great with finger application, will be, and also great with a, what's the word? Hello? Shader brush application, which we'll get to. But I wanted to quickly pull out a Quint. Stand by, please. Hold on. This Quint, I believe, is from 2023. Let me see here. The Bijou Brilliance Eyeshadow Palette Bronze Ecstasy. I think this was where she released 4 of these, and I was tempted to get all 4, but I just stuck with one. However, I did admire the formula found in her Quints, but you can see how they're like a lot more squishier in nature in terms of the texture, shiny, but they have like, again, they're creamier. And I didn't find this, sorry, focus, this trail of flakage in these swatches. I found there was little flaking, and this could be a newer formula for Pat McGrath Labs, replacing the Blitz formula, right? You know, I'm not entirely sure. Here, I could hop into what my favorite mothership is, Midnight Sun. This is the Blitz Orchid shade from Midnight Sun. It's baked, and I just want to show the texture. You see how you could pick up like that satiny type of a feel next to one of these shades, and you can argue these are shinier, right? For sure. And the Astral shade, I believe, let me see here, get the card, Astral Solstice, the Fairy Dust Disco Ball shade, right? Where you could put on anything. That is ultra dazzly. But then you have something like Blood Moon 005, which can be a little finicky, right? Because you can see the flakage on there and how there can be inconsistencies when applying it on your lid. It appears uneven, chunky, it's not smooth, and that's where I'll reach for Pat McGrath's Intensifies Wand, which it has more of like that adherence and not glue texture. It smooths out the flakiness and has it appear, this type of a formula, more of like a melted metal on your lids, whereas I don't think these need any of the intensifies. If you really, unless you wanted to bump it up, you know what I mean? But now that we have the swatches and a few comparisons out the way, it's time for you to come in a little closer. That's enough. I got the makeup on my face. If you would like to know what I applied, I'll have all those linked down below. And to start off the demo, we're going in with Pat Intensifies, which I think I'm done actually. I don't know if I'm applying any primer whatsoever, but here we are, it's fine. What should we start with first? You know what? I actually want to get both of these shadows on the cheeks. Let me make sure I got the card because I already forgot the names. Twilight Lilac, and because it is shadow, I'm being ultra careful with how much I pick up. Oh, that's pretty. The mirror is over here. Just to get a sense of how the color will perform on my skin tone and on the cheeks. Fantastic. I love it. It's not going to have any iridescent finish because it is a dedicated matte. So just beware of that, right? But if you want it more of like a monochromatic look, you most certainly can apply Twilight Lilac on the cheeks. And now going in with Lunar Nectar, the more coral leaning with the gold pearl. Maybe this will be a more fitting formula to be applied on the cheeks. So you can see Twilight Lilac has more of like that desaturated mauve tone to the complexion, whereas Lunar Nectar, probably a more fitting match for my skin tone. It's just that coral in there is going to brighten up my complexion a lot better. But you know what? I am dying to see how one of these shades pairs with the Hunter Green. That's what I'm looking forward towards, because I think it's fun to pair the lilacs and the greens where you might not think to do that. Someone might just combine, like this is the look right here. Eden Envy with Blitz, Radiant Rhapsody, and Nocturnal Bloom. Right, you got that look right there. But what if we went like with this quad, right? Combining these mattes and seeing how Twilight Lilac looks underneath the Hunter Green. You know what I'm saying? I would say the mattes are pretty consistent from what we've seen. At least the mattes stayed pigmented a lot on the first serving. I like that haze. I like that haze effect. Now, if I just wanted to suggest, you could keep this light and apply Astral Sunset Splendor all over the lid, right? Or you could go in with the bronze shade or go in heavier with the burgundy shade. I think that'll be lovely. Cosmic Fantasies. Now with Nocturnal Bloom, and I just want to hit first the lash line and then bring it upwards in a way where it appears more of like a hazed out wing, if you will. I don't want to completely take over my outer lid. I want to be a little more conservative here with how much of Nocturnal Bloom I apply and have it just kind of, you see that? I know it's not looking great. Sorry. I'm trying to fix the shape here. Not having a ton on the lid, but leading the color like this. Does that make any sense? Ooh, that's pretty. I like that. The green's coming through. I feel it looks distinctly green. If you want a more powerful serving of color, I would just tap the green on top of the portion that you kind of carved out with already, right? And then bump up the intensity there. But that's lovely. And you could also use Nocturnal Bloom as a shadow liner, right? To intensify the depth of your look without necessarily smoking it out to this degree. Okay, what are we gonna do for the lid? The Astral Iridescent Iris is calling my name. This right here, just to kind of push the boundaries a little bit, see how much we can get from Petalmorphosis. And this is the moment of truth. Oh, this is an interesting texture. It's a little smushy. The brush makes iridescent, what is this called? Astral Iridescent Iris, a little smush, but ooh, let me demonstrate what I'm talking about. You see that? You see how it's, okay, so be careful with what type of brush you use this shade with. However, I can detect more of the pearl on my lid than I could on the swatch. On the swatch, I just saw lilac in the base color. But now, as it scatters over my lid and the other shades that are already here, I can see the blue, the pink, and whatever else is going on. Ooh, that's pretty. I'm not too upset, family. I'm not. Maybe I'm just too tired. But that doesn't mean that you should buy this because this formula is pretty. If you feel strongly about the motherships not housing the original formula that we grew to know and love, and you can't align with this new whatever it is, even though, like I said, it has Blitz in the title and Astral in the title, is not the baked Astral Blitz shades. Or formula, I should say. Inner corner, well, we have a few choices. Well, well, that's not true. I could be a little daring and go in with Astral Sunset Splendor. I think it's light enough to fare as an inner corner highlight, or we could go with Divine Dawn. Maybe Divine Dawn, just because we got a lot of razzle dazzle going on already for this lid. So Divine Dawn it is. Placing that on the inner corner, I mean, you can't go wrong with the Skin Show Divine shades from the motherships to serve as your highlight choice. You know what I mean? I want to bring a little bit of Nocturnal Bloom here on the outer corner to complete the shadowing, and also Twilight Lilac on the entirety of my lower lash line. Yes, and then bring in a little more. Well, I could choose another color altogether, actually. Let me go in with Astral Sunset Splendor. Why not? Just pushing it here on the lower inner part of my lash line for a little more pizzazz. What shall we do next? I am dying to see Cosmic Fantasies in action, but also want to see Eden. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start off with Cosmic Fantasies. I will now cover my entire lid with this shade. It is this shade right here, okay? And discover, which I think will be fine, if you didn't want to follow up with a matte, can we get away with just brushing the edges slightly and we're done. Thank you for coming. This is something that I often admire about Pat's metallic formula. Its smooth texture, ease of blend, and basically just independence in serving as a standalone shadow without having to use a matte for edge blurring, but just to be just like that. And now on the lower lash line, I am pulling in the words across the entire lash line, but I will follow up with my blender brush just lightly here on the edges. And for the sake of it, I'll go in with Lunar Nectar. Again, we're just wanting to see as many shadows in action. If you wanted a more defined gradient here and not just want to leave the Cosmic Fantasies edges alone, you could do that. But this is what I wanted to see. All right, just left field, Astral Eden Envy, not just the inner corner, but like the inner arc. I want to completely overlap this, overlap it on top of Cosmic Fantasies. You know what I mean? Something I noticed too as I'm playing around is that because we don't have the astral shades that usually are more translucent and they serve as a topper moment. So they don't exactly change the color of the shadow, but they just change the flip. Like we've seen from Motherships 1 through 3, you could just kind of tap it on lightly and then it's gonna showcase more of like a blue heavy flip or like a peach heavy flip. Even just from Midnight Sun, if I wanted more razzle dazzle, I could go in with the astral shade right on top. But here you just have the dedicated shadows. You don't actually have like an overlay shade for that effect, which, you know, sometimes I want to just maybe add a little more shine here. Let's see, maybe we could achieve that. Astral Sunset Splendor, I'm taking some with my finger, and you know, we could kind of get some of that. That actually brings the center forward. It gives highlight and dimension to the eye. All right, so not all is lost, but I just wanted to put that out there. Excuse me while I just clean up the edges. Oh, microphone. I also still want to apply, you know what, I'm going in with Astral Iridescent Iris. What we applied here on the lid, I now want to overlay Astral Envy, Eden Envy. I can't remember these names. For a little more sparkly arcly, because the Astral Lilac shade is one of the more reflective shades in the bunch. So if you wanted to invite that effect, then go right ahead. And it can be flaky, right? So if you use a brush, you're gonna see like the flat, flaky particles on the skin. But if you want to kind of bump up the intensity, just after applying that shadow on the lid, follow up with the finger so you don't have to worry about it spreading oddly through your crease because you've already done that with the brush. You just kind of hit the center to intensify the effect, and there you go. That's not bad. Let me apply some lashes and maybe a highlighter to bring it all together, and I'll be right back. And friends, here are the final looks using Petalmorphosis for the first time. Yes, first impressions. My apologies for not mentioning that at the top of the video. I'll make sure to write that in a pinned comment, and I will return with more looks. I'm just under time constraints today and would like to get this video up in a timely fashion, and obviously the less footage I have to edit, the faster I can get the video up. And here are the remarks that I was alluding to at the beginning of the video. I had a feeling that we weren't going to get the old formula back. Again, not quite knowing what happened with Pat McGrath Labs. I think they're undergoing a lot of changes. Again, don't know from the manufacturing lab standpoint or the people who arranged these agreements and what have you. Maybe Pat McGrath Labs, maybe they couldn't sustain this Blitz formula anymore or the Astral formula anymore. And I understand people's disappointment because you can say that these are like glorified metallic and astral shades, pressed powder shades in a $128 palette that originally set the bar quite high. When we saw her first motherships back in 2017, it was unlike anything we witnessed in the luxury beauty space, having these specialized shades and impactful hues, just vibrant, rich hues in a luxury beauty setting with a runway sensibility in these huge compacts. Like, it was dazzling, and I know I was completely and utterly enamored when I first saw these palettes and used these palettes. And having something like Petalmorphosis is funny. If someone is not familiar with Pat McGrath Labs at all, meaning they don't have any of her palettes and they encounter this one, I think they will be quite impressed with the formula. Maybe they won't be familiar with her smaller curations like her quads and her quints and tried the formula for the first time and they're wowed by it. And again, I can't say for sure if this is different from what we find in her quints, in her smaller quad eyeshadow palettes. I have to say though, the colors are beautiful. I love the color story. I think it's spring appropriate. I like the fact that these textures are easy to work with. The trade-off that I experienced with the triple digit shades, like the 005 shades and some astral shades here and there, was the flakiness, the fussiness one could experience when trying to apply these textures on the lids. And something that we get from this press formula is more assurance and a more effortless application, in my opinion. Now, it would have been nice to see the brand release more of like a translucent shade with this pressed formula, one that's more transformative. We kind of got away with that, applying actual Sunset Splendor on top of Cosmic Fantasies. And seeing how beautifully glassy Astral Iridescent Iris is, I mean, it's lovely. It's a lovely color. I dig it. Again, this is not to force you to buy this palette. I'm here, yes, as a beauty influencer. I review makeup more so to help you make a more informed decision. If you want to get into Petalmorphosis, maybe you want to wait for a sale, maybe you're going to skip it, maybe you have other palettes in your collection that are like this color story, or maybe you have a bunch of indie singles that you can use to create this color story, right? People will argue that the indie shadows are killing it, and I agree that they are. I think the difference in indie brands is the packaging, and that's the main point of contention when comparing indie to luxury beauty. Luxury beauty just has an entirely different experience when it comes to the packaging and even purchasing the products themselves, versus indie brands, which is a different realm altogether. It's more independent. I think there are a lot of indie brands that do their best where they deliver purchases to customers, making the package feel special with the notes that they leave in the package. Thank you for buying from our brand. They make it more personal for sure. But I rather have, yes, the Petalmorphosis compact than a cardboard compact. And yes, this is cardboard from Pat McGrath, but when it comes to motherships, this is what I look for, and this is what I seek, and I'm happy that at least that they didn't cut corners on the mothership. Can you imagine starting to see cardboard motherships? I think that will be Armageddon for the brand. But all that to say, I'm happy with the palette. I am disappointed that we don't have the Blitz shades anymore, that we don't have the baked formulas anymore. The flip side is that if people did find trouble dealing with those shades, that I think they will have a far easier time handling this more easygoing, straightforward pressed powder formula that's still pretty shiny. They're still shiny. Again, Astral Eden Envy, the Blitz Radiant Raspberry. I know we didn't get into this turquoise, but what I'll do is film a short using Blitz Radiant Raspberry, and then I'll share my thoughts in a pinned comment for that video. So hopefully that sounds like a plan. But yes, family, I'll be back here for more looks, but I also wanted to hear your input before I film another video. Maybe you have more ideas, maybe you have more thoughts about this release and whatnot. We'll love to discuss down below. But if you made it this far, well, thank you for doing so, watching the entire thing. Maybe consider liking this video. It helps me tremendously, letting the YouTube algorithm know that I'm worth watching and fun to watch some more. Consider subscribing if you would like to see more videos. I mean, you know, more looks using Petalmorphosis. Hi. If you want to check out recent Luxe favorites, you could click that video here. I'll see you there, down in the comments for this video, and on here again next time.